In today's episode of the podcast, I was interviewed by Sid Meadows on his podcast, The Trend Report. We really wanted to talk about how to build a team and what we've learned here at MPS in building a team over the years. It was a great conversation. I learned a lot, and hopefully you'll learn a lot too.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Trend Report podcast. I'm really glad you're here with me today for this conversation with my guest today, Andy Vodder. Hey Andy, how are you?
I'm well, thanks for having me.
I'm glad that you're here. So as we get started, why don't you tell our audience who you are and what you do and the company you work for?
Sure, so my name is Andy Vodder. I work for a company called MPS. We're an acoustics company, so we solve acoustical problems by using, space partitions, absorbing material, or sound masking, electronic white noise systems, all those things. And we work with the contract furniture industry, the AV industry, and architect and designers and things like that to get our products specified. And we have really made it in our DNA to be someone that solves problems. We really want to be known as the company that you go to if you have a problem and you have a sound or acoustic or noise problem, you need help.
Okay.
And we can come up with solutions and we can turnkey them and make it easy for you. MPS stands for Making Privacy Simple.
Right.
So our DNA is responsive, fast, easy. All the things that we hear can be a challenge. We want to take that burden on ourselves and make it easy for our partners and our customers.
Sure. So I appreciate that introduction. And actually, Andy and I are on site together, actually recording this in person, which is the first time I've actually done this in a while. So I'm glad to be here with you.
I'm glad we could make it work.
Me too, and I'm excited to actually get a tour and learn more about the products that you sell. But you guys recently, did a brand change, right?
Yeah, we did.
And so what was that experience like?
Oh, I would not recommend it. I would just say that. We did a complete name change, and we actually shut down the other company as an LLC and started a new LLC.
Wow.
There were a lot of reasons for that attorneys explain that I'm not going to try and explain.
Sure.
So we were Speech Privacy Systems, and we switched to MPS. And the main reason for that was we kept expanding into different markets, into different vertical markets, different product lines, different market strategies. And we felt like the name that people knew us as was extremely narrow, and we was designed for SEO. I mean, That's why we named ourselves that years ago. And we were like, we needed to be a little bit more non-specific. And so we felt like MPS made a lot of sense because it stands for something that we believe in.
Right.
But it also is just three letters, which stands for nothing in the end, which means you can be whatever you need to be. And so that was kind of the aha moment for us. But
you fit in perfectly in our industry because you use an acronym.
There we go.
And we love acronyms in our industry.
Right.
So in your role here, you lead the sales and the operations side of the business.
I do, yeah.
So a lot of time you're spending out in the field working with, when we could get into the field, right? Working with your independent reps, with the dealer community and users, and then you're also supporting your team internally, whether I assume that's engineers and production, customer service, and all those things as well, right?
All of it, yeah.
So having a cohesive, united team and a team that works well together, tell me, what's it like building that?
That's a great question. Well, to kind of back up to that, I originally came from the sales team, but I just am very hands-on with a lot of things. I really have no manufacturing experience, which is kind of funny, but even though I'm the head of manufacturing, right? But the reason I took this position, and we kind of morphed me into it, was, like I said, our DNA, especially on the sales team, was customer service, quick response. We really care about making things easy and simple for people. And but as we grew, and we've grown pretty rapidly since I've been here, our operations team got more process driven. We started off like I could literally make the order happen. I could sign off, I could walk back and pack the box and make sure it went out that day. But as we grew, we started to add layers of complexity, as often happens. And our operations side was getting more and more, which was a great thing. We were getting more processes and getting more driven by that. But what was happening was, in my opinion, and in Bruce Davidson, our CEO's opinion, we were getting a little bit too rigid on processes and missing what was selling, like the reason customers came to us. And so without messing everything up on the process side, my goal was to bring everybody back together and understand why people work with us, why they choose us over other people, and then how do we keep that all about us throughout the organization. So if you're the shipping guy, of course you have to have the right information, and of course it's important to have the process followed.
Yep.
But the number one thing that's important is our customer is happy. So how do we marry those two things? And so that's what I've been trying to do with the team, both building new people into the team and just really trying to create a culture that, I don't care what your position is, you're a salesperson in our organization.
Right.
Your job is to take care of our customer. And it's whether you're returning equipment, shipping equipment, producing equipment, invoicing,
Right.
all those things are selling activities because people work with us because we make things easy.
Listen, I could not agree with you more. Every person inside an organization is in sales in some way. And I know, I hear it all the time. Oh, I hate sales. I never want to be a salesperson. If you're a customer service person, you're in sales.
Yeah.
If you're in shipping, you're in sales.
Yeah.
If you're in installation, you're in sales. Because the experience that you offer the customer gives them the insight of whether they want to come back and do business with you again. And I honestly, I've always said this, one of the single most important people in the entire sales process is the installer. Because the installer gives the customer the last experience before the next opportunity.
Yeah, that's right. No, that's so right. So last year, we do installations all over the country. We use subcontractors because it would be impossible to do that
Sure.
effectively without it. But last year, we invested heavily in hiring 4 direct employees who are all OSHA certified and then
Right.
highly trained in our products. And they mostly stick to Texas, but they'll travel anywhere to keep their schedules full and for the right type of job. But the goal there was, we were sitting around saying that exact thing you just said. The last experience people have with our company is that person handing off the
Right.
product to them. And I want them to have an MPS logoed shirt and a business card that says, look, if there's any issues, here's my cell. Call
Right.
me because I installed this and I will fix it. We knew that if that experience goes above and beyond what they get everywhere else, that they're going to call us again. They're going to,
Right.
they're going to want to work with us again. And so we made that investment, and we've seen it pay off tremendously. We're not quite ready to have like 100 people working for us.
I don't think anybody is right now, for sure.
But it's allowed us to, especially where more important, higher profile projects, we can get our employees on and make sure that they go off without a hitch. And that's been absolutely monumental for our business, I think.
Well, it sounds like to me that in addition to like really focusing on building your team, you've also been focusing on the customer experience.
Absolutely.
So do you have like a customer experience manager in your organization?
No,
Okay.
we don't. But it is I don't think we're quite big enough to have
Sure.
that yet
Right.
be the thing. But it is certainly something that both our marketing and our sales support. I would say where we really hit home that is we hired another layer of sales support people, which
Sure.
customer service. They work with our sales team, but they're very dedicated, and their KPIs are basically all around customer satisfaction,
Got it.
speed of response, and things like that, allowing our sales team to then focus more on high-level conversations
Right.
and closing sales. Now we have somebody behind them that can
Sure.
make sure that we come through on all those things. But it's a high focus point for us at this
Sure.
point. So
Well, you set up as part of your culture customer experience as being one of the big drivers, right? And you put people and resources in place to ensure that happens.
Yep.
So whether you want to add it to your job title or not, you're the customer experience manager,
absolutely,
right? Because you're
absolutely.
driving that culture to the team and making sure everybody understands the importance of that.
yeah, and when you talk about building a team, we use personality profiles, a company called Culture Index, where
Okay.
we screen applicants based on, first and foremost, we want the type of person who has the right attributes for that to be screened out originally. Like if a great example is that is we only hire a couple different profiles for salespeople.
Right.
And it's because there's a lot of people do not have the personal traits, intrinsic traits in their
Sure.
nature to be a good salesperson. It doesn't mean they can't get better or learn, but just let's
what's
start
that
a little.
called?
It's called Culture Index.
Culture Index.
Yeah, it's a fantastic. So this is how they sold it to us.
Okay.
It's a 6-minute questionnaire. You just take it, you answer some quick questions. It's very easy. It's like a disc, you know.
Yep.
But man, where they nailed me, and I've taken the disc and I've done all that, and yeah, it kind of describes me. I'm a complicated person anyway. So
Aren't we
I was
all?
always like, it kind of hits me there. So this is how they sold it to us. They bring a bunch of us in a conference room, and the gentleman pulls up a stack of papers and he flips through them and he says, Andy Vaughter. Raise my hand. I've never met this guy.
Right.
And he's like, all right, so Andy is like this, and you know, when he talks, this is what he actually means, and when he says this, you know, and you never want to go to Andy like this, and the whole place is laughing. Everybody's dying because he is pinning me up against the wall, and he did that to me, and he's like, all right, well, John, who's John? Okay, John, and he nailed everybody in the room.
Wow. Off of a 6-minute test.
And he's like, look, I can't tell you what your motivations are. I can't tell you what your ethics are.
Sure.
It's not a foolproof. It doesn't mean you're going to be a hard worker. It doesn't mean you're going to be a good person. But I can tell you what drives you, or like, are you internally motivated or externally motivated?
Sure.
Are you detailed or not? Are you personable or not? And to what degree? And it was just hilarious. And so we've used that to help us. It's not foolproof, but it sure helps get you, if you know what type of person you need to fulfill these roles,
Right.
then you know you can at least screen applicants that fit those profiles,
Sure.
and then you interview based on that.
So do you share those results with other team members?
Yes.
So what's the impact of that?
I think it helps us communicate. You know, people know based on my profile that I am very single focused. So whatever I'm doing, that's what I'm doing. So people have learned that if I'm typing an email and they walk into my office and start talking and I'm not looking at them, they might as well be talking to the wall because I didn't even know they were talking yet.
Right.
And so we've helped explain, like, I'm not being rude, that's just how I am. And so, but it helps people, they communicate better. Now they're like, hold on, I need your eyes. Okay.
Right.
So I got to close my laptop and slide my chair over. Like, all right, now I can tell you my problem.
So basically, you've used it as a way to help your team work to get better together.
Yes. So the idea was get the right people in the right seat.
Yep.
And then help them work better together.
Sure.
Help them leverage each other's strengths and weaknesses.
So as the person that's investing in that and taking those steps to do that, what would you say has been the impact on your organization?
I think it's helped us get the right people. I mean, that's only a portion of it. When we first got it, we thought it was the Bible. And so we only hired off of that. And we failed miserably. It was like, you're supposed to be like this. Like, oh, well, you know, you're lazy, it turns out. And so the more we understood some more of the nuance of it, it's a great tool to help you kind of get down the right path, but great accountability and goal-oriented beginnings to a job. You know, onboarding, a 60-day onboarding. We went through a lot of process of figuring out, you know, when I was hired, it was like, all right, so here's your office, here's your computer. You're going to shadow this person for a couple hours, and that was, you know, and I made it through all right, but we failed a lot because we didn't onboard people properly. So then we focused on that and said, how do we bring people in with a plan? An accountability plan. They know what they're being measured on in the interview process. We're hiring you to sell this much, or we're hiring you to improve this aspect to this point. So it's no surprise 90 days in, if you're not trending towards that, you already know that you're not quite meeting up to the standard. And so all those things together, I think we started to learn, okay, it's never foolproof, right? But we started having a higher batting average and better employee retainage and less turnover in a 12-month period. And that, I think that's been the ultimate result of getting the right people, is there's more security or more predictability. And
structure.
Yeah, structure. Yeah.
I love the fact that you put together a 60-day onboarding program to really, and you put everybody through the same one?
We tailor it to the
for
position,
job.
yes. Yep. But we learned that you can plan somebody's day out 60 days from their first day of hire.
Sure.
And, you know, but you do, by the back end, it's like you're only going to have these 2 daily meetings that are going to be an hour long, but the rest of the day is work. Start doing your job. So you start with the first 2 weeks, or you don't have any control over your time. You're always with somebody. And then we start to transition away from that. But we found that worked a lot better than you're hired, we're going to shadow a couple days, and then good luck. And that stark drop off seemed to fail a lot of people.
Sure.
And what I've learned is it's certain types of people through no fault of their own. There's just
Right.
some personality profiles that they need a different type of onboarding. They could be better than everybody else
Sure.
if you onboard them properly.
Right. So
Other
you're also
people-
adjusting it as you need
Absolutely,
to.
yeah.
Okay. Which is
Because
great.
some people very quickly show you like, no, I don't need all that. Just some people are like, give me the result that you want and leave me alone. I'm kind of that way. Like,
Sure.
don't mess with me. Just tell me what you want, and
Yeah. I'll figure it out.
I'll figure it out. I'll do it. Other people, boy, they think you've abandoned them, and you're going to
Yeah.
walk in and fire them any day because you
Yeah.
haven't talked to them in 4
Well,
hours. So-
what you're saying is, and what I'm hearing is, you can't manage everyone exactly the same way because people are different, and you need to be able to understand who they are by a personality profile to assess them. You need to give them a process of which they can be successful, but you need to really understand how they work in order to tailor it and tailor how you lead them in order to lead them to the right level of success for your organization.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's not to say you play favorites or we hold everybody accountable to a standard that we feel is important, but everybody's different.
Sure.
And so I have to learn. And I'm a former football coach, so I mean it was the same thing. I mean if I'm coaching the quarterback versus the running back,
Right.
those are different people and they're thinking about different things. And so
Sure.
like I think I learned at a pretty young age as a young adult how to do some of those things. But I try and apply that
Sure.
with the team. Is I have to treat different people differently because a great example is one of our sales guys is a former football player of mine. You better believe I can shut his door and say whatever I need to say to him.
Right.
Because I have since he was 16.
That's great.
But I don't do that to everybody else because the relationship is different and they respond differently.
Sure.
So, but in the end, we're here to perform. We're here to do a job well and get a certain outcome that we each are responsible
Right.
for. And so I try and keep the focus on the outcome. What happens between here and there is
Sure.
a lot more up to that person.
But it also sounds like to me that the outcome is established and they know.
It
what
has
they're
to be.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
has to be. And that's something we failed at more than we
Sure.
succeeded at. We didn't just read a book and like, all right, good, let's implement that. We failed and we failed
Sure.
and we failed. And we started just realizing like, I knew what their outcomes were and I hadn't communicated that to them, so they didn't know if they were failing or successful. And so we sit down and say, I don't think this is working. I think, you got to look for another job. And they are completely surprised, assuming that they were doing so well. And I'm like, that's my fault.
Sure.
That was on me. Like, I didn't do a good job of that. So
So
almost everything I've learned how to do right, I've learned by doing it wrong. I think every possible way, and then
Okay.
eventually.
So this is great because I have this philosophy about success and failure. And actually, I don't believe there is any such thing as failure. I believe there's only learning opportunities.
Absolutely.
And so I was actually working with a client outside of our industry, and he's a big burly guy, football player. He's just one of my most favorite clients. And we started talking about success and failure, and he goes, well, there's only success and there's only failure. And so I challenged him on that. And it was a very interesting conversation, but where I got him to change his thought process around it was asking 4 questions. Rather than looking at something that the outcome wasn't what you wanted as failure, let's look at what can we learn from that outcome. So I gave him a series of 4 questions to ask, which I think are really powerful questions. Because in anything that you do, when you don't get the desired outcome, it doesn't mean it wasn't successful. You just didn't get the outcome that you wanted.
Right.
So the 4 questions are, what went right? Because something always goes right. What went wrong? Because if you didn't get the outcome you wanted, something didn't go right. So what went wrong? The third question, which is probably the most important one, is what did you learn? So what did you learn from the experience? And the fourth one, which I guess it could be argued could be the most important one too, is what are you going to do differently the next time? How are you going to change and adapt in order to get a different result? And that can be applied in any job, in any function, sales, non-sales, whatever it is, to really learn from the experience, and in your personal life too, for that matter,
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
learn from what you went through.
Yep. One of the ways I describe it to pretty much everybody when we talk about things like this is, my goal is to be better today than I was yesterday. It's never to be perfect because we know that I can't be. So can I, and if I fail, well, that just sets the bar down. And then tomorrow, can I be better?
Yep.
It's not this perfect curve up. It's just a constant struggle to improve.
Sure.
And, so then, a failure is simply just an opportunity then tomorrow to do something a little bit better or different. And, COVID's been a great example of that. What we thought in May and April or March has changed. And even what we thought this summer is changing again. And we know it's going to change again.
Yeah.
And so not being so, this is how we're going to do it. And this is the outcome that we must have because we assume, well, we're going to sell millions here doing this. And then it doesn't happen. And we're like, well, were we just wrong? Or did things change? Or what can we learn from that?
Sure.
And what do we do right? And I would say some of the things that I've been praising our team about was we launched a new website and 3 new product lines in the middle of quarantine in the March, April timeframe.
That's great. Congratulations.
I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Things that initiatives we were trying to get done for months. We could not, we were too busy just in the day-to-day to get these strategic things accomplished. And we started doing daily sales and marketing Zoom calls together. We've stopped doing them daily. That got a little out of hand. But when things were changing daily, that was really helpful.
Sure.
Because we would sit down, the sales team would say, man, I had a dozen calls today and this happened. And now the marketing team can take that and say, okay, well, we need to shift our communication. And so I was really proud of how we failed all through COVID. I mean, but we came through on a couple of things that I think really showed that we had, first of all, the right team. We had people that really knew how to come through in a time that was really challenging, come together, and then solve problems as a team, and let their creativity kind of come alive. And that was extremely exciting to see throughout it. It doesn't mean we had a ton of success necessarily. I don't know, other than Amazon and Lowe's, who did, right? But
so true.
So
true.
But it really solidified with me that the team we have is people that really care about success, and want to think about how they can be better.
Well, it sounds like to me that you took advantage of a difficult situation. Right? Launching 4 new products, you pulled your team together, you're having daily calls, and you adjusted to not daily calls. But you were successful in launching 4 new products during basically a worldwide shutdown. And your team rallied and pulled together. And it also, I think what I heard you say is, if things had continued, you probably wouldn't have gotten it done. That COVID allowed for the focus to get it done. So you took advantage.
Even financially.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were doing really well. Like we're on pace for record year, just like everybody else was, it seems. And then COVID changed that, right? So now we're backwards. But the things that we've learned internally, financially, budget-wise and spending-wise, is going to position us so much better for the future than going into this. And so I'm grateful for that. It wasn't roses. It's not how I would have chosen some of these things to happen. But, I look at it and say, well, these are opportunities for us to be better. And I believe in most cases, we rose to the challenge of that.
And that's great because I think there are so many people that didn't. And there are a lot of people that aren't really thinking forward like that. So kudos to you for doing that and realizing what you needed to do during this time in order to come out on the other side better. Because there is another side. We don't know when it's going to be. We all agree that our industry is going to be different, but you're thinking forward enough to try to figure it out.
Well, we started this year, we went to quarterly goals, and we used to do yearly goals. And we scrapped that and said, we're doing quarterly. Well, then the first quarter kind of ended crazily, right? And so, but we hit our first quarter goal. Well, I didn't know what to do for the second quarter. I was like, I know nothing. So our goal for the second quarter was everybody come up with 2 ways that you can improve. And I'll survey you. So I surveyed them, and they all gave me 2 ways they could improve. So then I could follow up and say, did you do that? Do you want to learn Excel better? Or do you want to learn this? So it was just one of those things where I was sitting there like, I don't want to lose this momentum we've built on this more predictable quarterly conversations, but I have absolutely no idea what Q2 is going to look like and Q3 and
And now
Q4.
Q4, right?
No
Yeah.
idea. But so
Right.
we're trying to make it creative about those types of things. And at some point we're going to get back to where we
Yeah.
can start looking at our pipeline and say, hey, this is where we're trying to hit. But it just kind of goes back to, if you're constantly trying to improve and get better as an individual and as an organization,
Right.
The rest of that kind of takes care of itself, in my opinion. So,
I would agree with that. So, Andy, as we start to wrap up, what advice would you give to leaders today in continuing to navigate through where we are right now? As someone that is navigating an organization through it, what advice would you give other leaders?
probably the main thing is just question what you think you know.
Ooh.
And I'm a person that likes to look at all the pieces and then draw my conclusions and think that I know how this
Right.
is supposed to be. But that's one of the things I feel like I've really personally learned in this is, don't be so stuck on what I believe I know to be true.
Right.
And just keep your eyes open and your mind open.
Yeah.
And listen. And that, that's one of those you got to remind yourself daily when you wake up to
Yeah.
kill
There's a lot
my
of
own
lessons.
opinions and just kind of open up my ears. But that has been something that I think the organizations that do that and the leaders that do that are going to be the first ones to find what some of these new things are going to be, and they're going to take advantage of them.
There's a lot of lessons in what you just said right there. I appreciate you sharing that. It's been my pleasure to be here with you today. I'm excited
thank
for
you.
this conversation. So, Andy, if our listeners today would like to get in touch with you or to connect with you, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
You can follow me on LinkedIn. I post pretty regularly. I used to post a ton. I'm trying to get,
Get your cadence back?
yeah, I try to get it all back. But follow me on LinkedIn. I
Okay.
share a lot of stuff from our company too. And some of it's specific to what we do. Some of it's just random
Right.
selfies of whatever.
That's okay.
Or you can email me, andy.v@mpsllc.com.
That's awesome. And if you're a frequent listener of the Trend Report podcast, you know the rules about reaching out to Andy as it relates to LinkedIn. If you do reach out to him and you don't know him, be sure to include a message that you heard him and you listened to the podcast, and make sure you tell Andy why you want to connect with him. So again, I appreciate you being here. It was a great conversation, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
All right, take care.
Thanks.